So what kinds of costs do we have for projects? We have direct costs, so those labor, materials, equipment that we can trace directly to a specific project or item. Then we have direct project overhead costs. So overhead costs are those extra costs that can't be traced directly to an item, but we still know that they're tied to that actual project. So all of you have taken Principles of Accounting 2, and you've heard about these costs before, and you've dealt with the allocation of these costs. General and administrative overhead costs are any organizational costs that aren't really linked to a specific package, but they get apportioned to the project. And these can be things like using administrative services, using IT costs will get apportioned out to different products and departments. So this is an example of a contract bid summary cost. We have our direct costs, which are our direct materials and our direct labor. Then our direct overhead, which is overhead that can be applied to the project. Our general and administrative overhead, which we appropriate at a 20%, our total cost, our profit markup, and then we give a bid price. So we would tell this customer or this client that we could do this project for $144,000. So the price that we give the client is based on our total estimated cost plus any profit markup. Then when we're looking at our different costs, we have committed costs, actual costs, and scheduled budget costs. Our committed costs are going to be things like our salary and different commitments that we have to make. Our scheduled budgeted costs are what we've scheduled as part of our process. So if we say a project is going to take 6 months, then we will have monthly scheduled costs throughout that project. And then our actual costs are the actual costs and resources that we have on that project that can be higher than a project. When we're refining our estimates, this is when we're in the middle of a project and we need to adjust what our estimate was. And the reason that we might have to adjust estimates are that we have interaction costs that were hidden in our estimates. And these interaction costs are how many times do we have to interact or have meetings that cause extra time on the project that we didn't feed into the project. So we now have to make some adjustments because this project is going to take more time because we had to have a lot more meetings about it. Our normal conditions do not apply. We planned a road construction project knowing that we averaged 5 rain days in June and it rained 18 days in June. That's not normal conditions. So we now have an extended time project. Another thing that happens with road construction is the paint that goes on the surface to paint the lines has to be applied in a very specific temperature window, which is why road construction usually happens in the summer months in the state of Iowa, because we need that temperature window for those things to work. And if we don't have those temperature windows, it's either too hot or too cold. We're not under normal conditions. Things go wrong. Things can go wrong on projects. We can have any variety of things that can happen. We have a natural disaster. We're in hurricane season right now where we have hurricanes happening in the south. We have COVID that we get state shutdowns for 3 months. Changes in project scope and plan. So adding scope adds costs. Adding scope adds time. We were overly optimistic. So this can happen a lot in projects. We overpromise. People have a general just kind of dispensation to say, I can do something faster than I actually can. I'm not going to have any other commitments on my time. I'm really good at that. I can get it done in 2 days. And then something else comes up and I couldn't get it done in 2 days. And just strategic misrepresentation. So we might underestimate the cost of projects and overestimate the project benefits in order to win approval. This happens a lot with really large scale public works projects or projects that we're trying to get approval on that might not be popular. We are going to say, oh, the costs are going to be really low, it's going to be really okay, and it's going to have so many benefits to us that we're just going to be okay. One of the things the textbook talks about when we talk about massive projects later on is Olympics and bidding for an Olympic studio. This is where we usually get strategic misrepresentation. So cities fight over an ability to host the Olympic Games. And in order to host the Olympic Games, they often have to build new athletic stadiums and other things to accommodate for that. But they're bringing in a lot of tourist traffic. So they say you should approve this project to businesses and citizens because we're going to bring in all of this tourist traffic and it's going to be so great for us and everything like that. Well, in reality, studies have shown that cities very rarely recoup any cost that they put into building all of the new infrastructure that they need for Olympic Games. I'm going to show just right now an example of a cost going over things going wrong on a project or normal things not applying where we have to redo our estimate. So we have this road construction project in Ames on Highway 30. And one of the main things that happened as a part of this road construction was there was a measurement issue. So the company that was building the supports for the bridge measured incorrectly and they were too short. So they had to demolish the bridge, the supports, so these supports. They had to demolish the bridge and rebuild them. So the construction project went over. They delayed it numerous times because these 6 piers and ramps were built incorrectly. It cost them a huge amount of money to have to do all of that rework. So they have to do this redo this $23 million project after this huge mistake. So what they do then is that they had built in delay fines with this construction company. So large projects will do that sometimes. They'll say, if a contractor delays our project for any reason that's like their mistake, they have to pay fines for however many days that they delay it. So this construction company, by incorrectly measuring these beams, has a human error. They were placed the wrong height. And so they had to redo them to get the correct height. So they had said the original construction was going to be 240 days, which then, because of this mistake, they were 7 months late. The Iowa Department of Transportation then charges a $5,500 a day fine for project lateness. So this gives them an $800,000 fine for going over that project. So this company is being fined for being delayed, and they have to redo all of the work that they had originally done in that. So they're basically doing this project twice. They're only going to get paid for it once, and they're getting fines on top of it. So this is one of those things where their estimates are going to be wrong because of something that went really wrong on this project. So this is just an example of how things can go wrong in a project that weren't planned for as a part of that estimate. So we have estimating database templates. So we're going to look at different things such as the programming, product production. When we have documentation for our projects, so the more documentation that we maintain about all of our projects in some kind of a project management software system or database, the more information that we have then to estimate future projects. If we keep documentation on what were our estimated and actuals on every project we've ever done so far, then we get a future project. We can look at all of this information and use that good historical information to make better estimates in the future. The last thing the textbook talks about are mega projects. So mega projects are extremely large, complex projects costing $1 billion or more that take multiple years to complete and involve private and public stakeholders. So we talk about things such as rail lines that go across multiple states. So we have multiple state shareholders. We have airports, healthcare reform, the Olympics. They talk about several different Olympics things. So they almost always cost more than they're expected, and they also under-deliver on the benefits they were supposed to provide. These are sometimes called white elephants, or over budget, undervalue, high cost of maintaining that exceeds any of the benefits received. One of the examples they talk about in your book with an airport is the Denver airport. The Denver airport had delayed construction, went significantly under budget, and then had a 50% downfall on the profits that they had estimated for their first year of operation. And as I said before, there's a lot of research around hosting Olympics for cities. It's an extremely high cost to put in all of the infrastructure that it costs to put a bid for the Olympics, and the benefits aren't, they don't always gain all of the benefits that they hope to derive from being an Olympic city. So then the last thing the chapter talks about is this reference class forecasting process. So in the reference class forecasting process, we build this database of similar projects. And we look at different cities who have done the same thing. So for example, if we decide as a city we want to make a bid for the Olympics, we would research other Olympic bids. If we were getting ready as a city to build a whole new project, a bridge or a new highway project, then we would go out and research information about similar bridge projects in other cities. Then we would look at how many of those projects went over their original project estimate and use that information to get a better forecast for ourselves. So this is where we use other people's information on a project that we've never done before to help us make estimates based on their experiences and get a more realistic forecast. That is the end of chapter 5.